Hi, friends. I'm a couple minutes early, but I see that there are a few of you on here. So we'll just wait until the time. There's a question. Marie-Josée is asking si c'est en anglais, if it's in English. And and so we have Muriel chatting on behalf of True North Insight, and she says yes. Mais Marie-Josée, si tu es encore là, si jamais tu peux poser des questions en français dans le live chat. C'est ça. All right, friends. So it is 7:30. It's the time of our group practice today. And so wherever you're calling in from, thank you for showing up. Thank you for your willingness to practice. And it could be nice to know who's on the other end. So whenever you feel comfortable, you can just pop into the live chat and just say hi and where you're calling in from. It's completely optional. And then under the True North Insight name will be Muriel, who's chatting with you. And so other times it'll be teachers, other times it'll be staff or volunteers. A couple things before we get started that might be helpful. You might want to go full screen or at least close a bunch of tabs. I'm an open tab kind of person. I often have many of them going. And so what I did was I created a whole new browser window with this chat so that I could stay more or less concentrated. But again, you might decide to close all tabs that you might have going on. You might, perhaps you've already done this, but you've warned people in your home what's going on. And if you didn't, that's totally fine. Given the circumstances, a lot of us are practicing from home with very full homes because schools, daycares, partners who were working, roommates, were all self-isolating together. And so when or if that happens, if there's a disturbance, can that be part of your practice as opposed to an obstacle to your practice? Is the invitation. Just because we're all living together, and so why not try to make the best or most of it? And what I was thinking of doing today or this evening, so we have about 30-45 minutes together. And what I was thinking we can do, I'll guide us through a meditation of about 20-25 minutes. And then from there, I would open it up to questions and see if anybody has any celebrations, commiserations, or questions that you might have. And then I would try to answer them or address them through the lens of practice and Buddha Dharma. And so even though there is the live chat, that's mostly meant for your questions. So again, you can pop in and say your name and where you're calling in from or videoing in from. Otherwise, my one request is that you don't interact with each other. You don't say, hey, how is everyone doing this or that? Just so that at least for the meditation portion, we can cultivate a really mindful awareness as a group together. And of course, that's not meant to silence you by any means, but rather just so that we can co-create a supportive environment. If there are no objections to that, I'm just checking in to see if you do object, that's totally welcome. You can type that into the chat, and I'll just wait maybe um, 15 seconds or so to see if there are any objections or special requests or something like that. All right. Well, with that said, we'll get started in our meditation practice. And so, what you might want to do is set yourself up as comfortably as is possible right now. And you don't need to be seated. You can be standing, lying down. You could even turn your screen away from you, but you might want to still have access to the audio so that you know when the meditation has ended. And once you've set yourself up into your chosen meditation posture, you can close your eyes if you like, or you can keep them slightly open. Make any final adjustments that you might need. And then from there, commit to stillness. Take a few deep breaths to help you arrive. And since you're not being recorded, you can really let each deep breath out with a big sigh. No need to hold back. Whether it's now or in a few more breaths, eventually return to a natural breath. Take a few moments to invite the body to relax. You can do that by scanning the body from head to toe, relaxing the parts that are feeling tense. Or instead, you might use words like, may this body relax. May I relax. Begin to notice With awareness, whatever is attracting your attention, whether it's sounds coming from my end or sounds that are coming from your end, like outside the room or outside the building, sensations or thoughts, smells, or anything else, just notice. So you can continue paying attention in this way, just noticing whatever is attracting your attention. Or if you'd like to gather the mind a little bit more intentionally around one object, then you can integrate any way that you practice on your own. Or if you're not too sure what to do, you can turn your attention to your breath. Whether it's at the nose or chest or belly, you feel it, or somewhere else. Follow the in and out or the rise and fall of each breath. You might have noticed that the mind wanders, which is completely normal. When that happens, can you bring your awareness gently back to whatever it was that you were focusing on, whether it was sounds or the breath or something else? And how much time you spend on your point of focus or your anchor isn't important. What's most important, at least for this evening, is how gently and kindly you can bring yourself back to the moment. Even if you have to do it hundreds of times, can it be gentle and kind? By now, a particular mind or heart state might be present, like peace, peacefulness, or joy, or anxiety, or restlessness, happy, sad. And if it's not obvious to you right now, that's fine. You can prompt yourself to notice with a question like, what is here right now? What is this? And a specific emotion might not even be clear, or mind state, in which case you can just notice contracted or expanded as a felt sense. And see if you can allow for whatever is already present to be here, even if it's unpleasant. And it doesn't mean that we have to like what's here or what's arising right now, but it's more this invitation for, can we stop fighting it? And if you do like prompting questions, you can say to yourself, can I allow or accept what is here? And for the next few minutes, can you feel into or investigate all of the ways you physically feel in this moment, whatever it is that is present for you? For example, if it's joy, where in your body do you feel it? What are the sensations like? Is there a temperature to it? And same thing if it's sadness or anxiety or calm. In other words, what are all of the ways you feel what you're feeling right now? Trying to make a comprehensive list. And finally, regardless of whatever is present, pleasant, unpleasant, expanded, contracted, can you nurture yourself, being this sensitive human being in the middle of it all? And nurturing for everyone can look different. You can perhaps bring your hands to your body, one hand to the chest, one hand to the belly, or both hands to the heart. So just also like to hold their head in their hand. I personally like to have one hand to the heart. I silently repeat to myself, it's okay. It's okay. And I leave a lot of space between the phrases, so that I can really let it sink in and receive those words. It's okay. And you might have a different phrase, something that expresses nurturing. For the last few minutes of this practice, you can continue nurturing yourself, or at any point, you can return to focusing on your anchor, like the breath, or just noticing whatever is attracting your attention. If your eyes are closed, take your time in opening them, if you like. And if bowing is part of your practice, you can go ahead and bow. And so we have about 20 minutes left. However, we don't have to take the full time, but rather this time is for you. So do you have any questions? Anything you'd like to express? And in a few minutes, I do want to share a breathing technique that can help manage or at least ease anxiety if ever you feel that throughout the day. And if you do have any questions, you can pop into the chat on your right-hand side and type it in there. And so just to share a little bit of my experience, I don't often teach on YouTube. And so it's hard for me to quote unquote read the room. So I will wait a couple more long seconds, long moments to see if there are any questions. Et aussi, vous pouvez les poser en français si jamais vous avez des questions. Okay, so there's one question from Gabrielle. Hello, Don. Feel free if you feel it is relevant or not. Could you talk about your experience on long retreats? So, Gabrielle, one question I have for you is what makes you ask? And is it because self-isolation feels like what you think a retreat would be like? So let me know and then I'll answer given that. And so Micah says, want to offer gratitude for this offering tonight. Thank you, Micah, for being here and from tuning in. I believe you're in Ottawa. Oh yeah, and that's another thing. If you do want to also pop in and just let us know where you're from, where you're watching from, I think that's also kind of nice to know who's on the other end or to create a sense of community. And so, Gabrielle, I don't know if you're typing, but basically, I'm kind of curious to know what you want to know. But I think it's a good time for me to actually talk about this, where long retreats, also, although it is the most immersive way that we can practice meditation, I don't believe it's the way for everybody. And so Gabrielle writes, I'm curious about your experience in deepening of the practice. And so just to finish my thought around why I don't think it's for everybody, I think for folks who might have unexpressed trauma in their system, that the intensive silent retreat setting can actually be aggravating. And so I would often have anxiety attacks on retreats. And these are not to scare anybody, but these are long retreats, like 6, 12, or 12 weeks long. And in a way, I was actually thinking about this yesterday. I actually find it, I was like bowing down to the anxiety that I had on these retreats, because it is what is helping me really manage my anxiety with all the uncertainty that we're living right now. And I have a lot of students who are turning to me asking for tips to manage their anxiety. And it's really from my experience from those retreats from which I can answer. But one thing I can say about my long retreat experience is that there was this depth of faith and trust in the practice that got developed with each long retreat or each retreat that I did that is undeniable and that has now become unshakable. And I think where that comes from is just the steadiness of going through all of these different heart and mind states on retreat, but still feeling somewhat held by this practice. And this practice doesn't need to have a very restrictive definition, like seated or walking and doing everything slowly. Because of the anxiety that I was managing on retreats, some of my walking meditations were running meditations. And so seeing the vast array of what mindfulness practice can look like, I really developed this long, this deep trust and faith in the practice and its benefits. So I hope that answers a little bit your question. Yeah. And so Cat Soleil, hi Catherine and Martin in Montreal with the cat on our lap. Oh yeah, thank you for sharing that. When my dog was alive, she used to always sit on my lap during meditation. Any other questions? Thank you, Gabrielle. So just thanking me for my answer. Any other questions? Again, celebrations, commiserations. It could be about what you're living right now, or just general questions, kind of like what Gabrielle had asked. So really, this is your time. One thing I do want to say on the note of anxiety, actually, if you're practicing meditation, I think we fetishize a few things. One being eyes closed, and that's just our tradition of Vipassana. Other traditions like Zen meditation, often they have their eyes open. But basically, if you're feeling a lot of anxiety arising when you're doing your seated or your formal practice, when anxiety arises, what you can do is ABC, create a bigger container. So what that might mean is that in the middle of the anxiety, and it could also just be extreme restlessness, it might not be full-blown anxiety, but you can open your eyes. And so that's creating a bigger container, because sight, if we have the fortune to have sight as one of our senses, it floods in and takes about 3/4 of our attention. And so that often helps get us out of whatever mind loop we might be in. Sometimes it's not strong enough, in which case you might need to look around your room and name things that you're seeing. And that's using mental noting to gather the mind even more. Other tips, if you practice near a window, look outside, and if you have access to looking up at the sky, that's again another way to create ABC, that bigger container. Or you might do walking meditation instead of your seated practice. And really all you need is about 10 or 15 paces long. So the way that a lot of Montreal apartments are designed, it's usually long hallways. You can walk up and down your hallway, basically. So any other questions or comments? Kat asks, guided meditation versus silent meditation. What do you prefer? Why? I think that's a great question. And I don't think there's necessarily one right or wrong way to practice. There's just basically the conditions that help cultivate the most ease right now. So, like I mentioned, I'm meeting a lot of students online. That's one of the ways I teach. And a lot are checking in or reporting about anxiety. And so, in their case, I would suggest guided meditations, just because it acts as this almost like this tangible anchor for the mind to gather around. Um, if we're feeling restless and we're trying to self-guide or have a silent meditation, we might not catch ourselves as quickly when we're caught in this loop that or rumination. Other times that I like guided meditations, other than just when I'm feeling restless, is when I'm kind of not in the mood to meditate, where it's just an effort to sit on my cushion, which does happen. And so to sit on my cushion and to think about having to self-guide myself is just sometimes like too much effort, where I'm like, I'll just lay in bed instead or something like that. So I use guided meditations as a way to help reduce that resistance or that barrier. And so a free app that I really like is called Insight Timer. I have a few meditations up on there, but there's a ton of amazing teachers on there. The one challenge with Insight Timer is that there's almost too many teachers. And so if you think you're in a zone or a period where you might need guided meditations, maybe at some point, not during your meditation practice, but at some point during the day, go through and pick a few teachers or pick a few meditations based on themes. Line those up so that you don't spend your whole meditation trying to choose a guided practice. And then a little bit more on silent meditation when I'm feeling pretty calm and collected naturally. Silent meditation feels more easeful or accessible, in which, as opposed to guided meditations, when I'm feeling quite calm, each instruction feels just like a bother or a distraction. So, yeah, those are just some thoughts on the two. And just because, last thought, just because you have maybe weaned yourself off of guided meditations and do silent, it doesn't mean that you figured it out for the rest of your life, but rather life changes and our practice will change. And so how can we adapt our practice to support the changes in our life? Chantal says, bonsoir, merci, je suis de Salaberry de Valleyfield, said with the English accent. Yeah, you're welcome, Kat. Maybe time for one more question, if there is one. Okay, so just to share a couple more resources with you, because if, say, you're now working from home or you're spending a lot more time online these days than normal, I think it's good to have some helpful tools that are not just these abysses of news outlets. So one is, I mentioned walking meditation. Today I posted on Instagram, if anybody is on Instagram, but I posted my first IGTV, which is an 8-minute walking meditation video. It's more a guided audio, basically. So that's just with my name, Dawn Mauricio, and you can find it there. Another resource that I came across Instagram is this from this teacher and author named David Trevelyan. And he wrote the book Trauma Sensitive Mindfulness. And I really appreciated this simple technique that he said helps him really get out of his head and ease his anxiety. And I've been doing it since I saw that video, which was maybe last week or so. And I found it really, really helpful. And so you might want to do it along with me, but I'll describe what it is now. And it'll entail using your hands or your arms. And so basically, what he did was he held his hands in front of him like so. And so if you're not seeing the screen, it's almost like I'm holding this ball between my hands. My fingers are relaxed, shoulders and arms relaxed as well. This can be done with eyes open or closed. But basically, when you inhale, what you would do is you let your hands expand. And as soon as you stop inhaling, stop moving your hands. When it's time for your exhale, you have your hands move towards each other. When you're done your exhale, just stop moving your hands. And then again, inhale. Move your hands apart. Exhale, move your hands towards each other. So let's do that together for another 2 or 3 breaths. Eyes can be open or closed. If your eyes are closed, you can open them and you can lower your arms. What I like about that exercise, it almost feels as if my hands become the breathing organisms on their own. And so I get really excited about the sensations I feel at the level of my hands. But focusing on the breath for some people is too abstract. It's not strong enough to ground their attention. So when we combine it with a movement of the body that's fairly simple, and then we have to coordinate the movement with the breath, suddenly we're really giving our mind a lot to do. It's like the trauma sensitive mindful version of like patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time. So try that out this week, and I'd love to hear how that goes. You can comment on this video, or if you follow me on social media, I'd love to know. And so we're nearing the end of our time, and I just want to take a couple minutes to thank you for showing up. And I really hope that your practice is acting as a refuge for yourself during these uncertain times. And that as a result of your depth of practice, that others can find refuge, not just by things you say, but just by being in your presence. And it doesn't mean that you have to be calm, cool, collected the whole time, but for the most part. Also, these live streams, we just started them this week, so we're quite excited about them. And these are being offered by True North Insight and also led by the teachers, so the various True North Insight teachers. And so basically, we offer these freely, not because they have no value, but rather they are priceless. And so if you're new to the concept of dana or generosity, basically, True North Insight is a nonprofit in which most of the ways to cover costs are covered by retreats. About 50% of retreat costs cover, retreat costs cover about 50% of the operational costs of the organizations. But right now, a bunch of our retreats are canceled. So we're not too sure how we're going to continue funding our operations. And so there's a link below in which you could contribute a donation directly to True North Insight. And then also, as a teacher, I am not guaranteed a salary. I live a lot by donation. And so with these retreats canceled, I'm also not earning in a steady way, let's say. And so if you feel called to also donate, that would contribute, or that would go to me, that would help me continue dedicating myself to the practice and sharing it. There's also a link below. But we basically don't want finances to be an obstacle. We believe these practices are of benefit for everyone, and we hope to make them accessible to everyone. And so, so please give what you can, if at all, because I know that we're all living with uncertainty right now, and a lot of us have a reduction in income. So that's just a collective reality. Which actually gives me a little bit comfort, because I don't feel like I'm alone in that uncertainty either. So that's our time, and feel free to pop into the chat and say bye to the other folks that are here. And I will see you next week at this time as well. And hopefully you'll be able to join the other True North Insight sessions that are being offered by our various teachers. So thank you. Be well, be safe, and I'll see you on another one of these. All right. Bye.